Lift up the trumpet and sound let it ring. Jesus is coming again. Cheer up, ye pilgrims, be joyful and sing. Jesus is coming again. Coming again, coming again. Jesus is coming again. Last verse. Nations are angry, but history to know. Jesus is coming again. Knowledge and wisdom and Jesus is coming again. Coming again, coming again. Jesus is coming again. Jesus is coming again.
Thank you. Let's have a word of prayer. Our most gracious, loving Heavenly Father, we thank you for your Sabbath day. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your message today from Pastor Lin. Now we're going to have another message. It's a message of health coming from your servant, Dr. Axa. Help us to listen and learn a good lesson today. And may we apply it into our daily life. In Jesus' name, amen. It is my privilege and honor to welcome and introduce our speaker this afternoon, Dr. Axa Martell, and her husband, Todd, an internist and one of the VPs at Loma Linda Health. For those who do not know, I would like to mention that Dr. Axa is the daughter-in-law of Pastor Lin and Karen, and Dr. Todd is their oldest son. Dr. Axa graduated from Loma Linda School of Medicine in 1997. After graduation, she became one of the first hospitalists at Loma Linda University Hospital and practiced as such for the next 20 years. Also, she has always been a member of the faculty of the Loma Linda School of Medicine as an assistant professor of internal medicine to the present. Dr. Axa and Dr. Todd have two young sons who are in college, Aiden at Weimar College and Torren at Southern Adventist University. I'm sure there must be more interesting and good things to say about Dr. Axa, but I am afraid that we don't have enough time today. So, Dr. Axa, thank you for taking your precious time to be with us this beautiful Sabbath day and share with us everything we will need about our good health. As Pastor Lin always said, it's going to be a gutsy presentation. So Dr. Axa, the time is yours.
Thank you, Brother Nguyen. Happy Sabbath, everybody. It is a pleasure being with you guys today. And let me get this thing. Okay. Yes, Jesus is coming again, and that is the reason why we need to be as healthy as possible, because we need to have our brains as clear as possible to understand the times and to understand what the Bible is trying to teach us about getting ready for his second coming. So today, I chose the topic about gut health because I think it's such a such a common topic out there that I thought it might be interesting for you guys. I want to start with a verse that says, "Beloved, I wish above all things that you mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth." And I see your souls are prospering here under the leadership of Pastor Martell and Brother Nguyen and so many other elders and fellow believers here. So let's delve a little bit now into the physical aspect of our health. Okay, here's a fact. Food is the determinant of health and disease during our lifetime. That's a fact. It's food, one of the big things that will determine that, okay? Over the years, you will have eaten about 80,000 pounds of food, okay? So can you imagine the influence, the power that has on our body if that's how much we are taking, right? Well, Hippocrates in 400 BC said, "Let food be thy medicine and medicine thy food." This quote has never been more important than today. Okay, so research shows that whether it's digestion, metabolism, the immune system, or your mood, all thriving health starts in the gut, okay? The French author Antoine Brillat-Savarin coined the term, "Tell me what you eat, and I will tell you who you are," okay? What is our gut or gastrointestinal system? So we'll quickly talk a little bit about what this all entails, okay? So the gastrointestinal system starts in our mouth. From the mouth, it goes to our esophagus that connects our mouth with our stomach. Then after our stomach come our small intestines, and then we get our large colon or our large bowel or colon, and then the rectum, okay? But the body or the gastrointestinal system also makes use of some accessory organs like the liver, the pancreas, and the gallbladder. And then the greatest organ that has come to the forefront over the last 10 years or so, maybe a little bit more, is the microbiome. The microbiome is considered almost an organ of its own, and it is, within us. That's our gut microbiome. Now, there's other microbiomes. I mean, research right now this is what is on the forefront of research right now is microbiome. We have the gut microbiome. We also have a lung microbiome. We have a skin microbiome. We have a birth canal microbiome as well. So literally, honestly, it's said that only 10% of our DNA is our own. The rest of the DNA we carry belongs to microorganisms that live with us, okay? Okay, so let's talk about digestion. What is digestion? So working together with nerves, hormones, bacteria, which is our microbiome, blood, and the organs of our digestive system, they will proceed and break down or digest the food and the liquids that we drink each day, okay? So proteins are broken down into amino acids that are the building blocks of proteins. Fats are broken down into fatty acids and glycerols. And then carbohydrates are broken down into simple sugars, okay? All right, so let's talk about the stomach. The stomach is basically a big muscle that mixes in the food that has come in from the mouth through the esophagus with acids and other enzymes that are produced there so that it can start or continue the digestion actually that started in the mouth, because digestion actually starts in the mouth through the effect of amylase, which is one of the enzymes that already starts breaking down sugars. And so as we chew, also that sends signals to our digestive tract so that the body, the intestines, everything can start getting ready to bring out all these enzymes so actually the food can be broken down. Now, just a little thought there. Can you imagine what chewing gum does? Right? If we're chewing gum, then it's a false alarm to our digestive tract because the body gets ready, let's get all these enzymes ready, hormones ready, and guess what? Nothing comes down. So, so not so very healthy, right? Okay. So then from the stomach, and a little bit more things happen. So the stomach also has other functions, you know, with the function with B12, etc., but we're not going to go there. So the very basic thing is what I just mentioned. From there, it goes into the small bowel. And in the small bowel is where the major portion of digestion actually takes place. Here, the food is continued to be mixed, and we add more enzymes and more bile, you know, coming from the gallbladder. All of that just mixes in to help break down these proteins, carbohydrates, and fats so they can be readily absorbed into our system so they can nourish every cell of our body. Okay, so we have here let's see, where's my, okay. Okay, we have here a picture of the stomach that we just talked about. Now let's talk about the large bowel or the colon. Okay, it used to be thought or said, you know, we learned that colon basically is just a reservoir, a big tank for the waste that has, you know, been accumulating from digestion, and that's where a lot of the water gets reabsorbed back into the system, and so the liquid stool actually becomes solid right there. And that was the thought, you know, that was out there. However, with the knowledge of the microbiome, now we know that it harbors about 10 billion microorganisms and over 10,000 or thousands of species of different bugs or different, you know, bacteria. And it's actually considered the most metabolically active site of the intestine, of the human body. Okay, so here we have a little picture of the intestines. So you can see that big organ up here is going to be our liver. Right underneath, you see a little green sac. That's the gallbladder that actually collects the bile from the liver. And then we have, you saw the stomach already in the previous picture. Right underneath the stomach, you see that long orangey organ, that's the pancreas. And then the wormy structures, the thinner ones, that's the small intestine. And then the bigger ones going around, that's the colon, okay? All right, so the liver. The liver is one of the accessory organs, and it basically does a lot of things. But one of the things that it does is it produces digestive juices that help digest the fats into glycerols and fatty acids so that they can actually be absorbed. The bile ducts carry the bile from the liver into the intestine so it can actually be used by the bowel so it can actually do its job. or it can take the bile to the gallbladder where it's stored, okay? Now, all the blood that leaves the stomach has to go through the liver, where it is cleansed or detoxified. So it's important in that we don't want unhealthy or toxins to come and injure us. It also is part of glucose metabolism or sugar metabolism. It also is, important for the production of, a lot of things like albumin and clotting factors that keep our blood from running too thin, the immune system, and so forth, okay? The pancreas. The pancreas is an organ that has both hormonal functions as well as enzyme, the function of creating enzymes and releasing those so that things can actually be digested, okay? And so I will show you here. Well, actually, let me tell you this first. One of the hormones that everybody knows the pancreas releases is insulin. Yes, insulin, okay. So insulin is a very important hormone. So when we start eating, right, the body sends signals through the nervous system to our pancreas as well, telling us that, hey, food is coming, get ready for digestion. When we eat a food that is highly processed, that does not have a lot of fiber, what happens is that the pancreas senses that and releases a very large amount of insulin because, hey, here we have a lot of sugar, we got to take care of this. So we get a rapid rise in the insulin to take care of that, big amount of sugar. And then, sometimes it overshoots, and then we end up having, at the end, feeling like, I'm hungry again 2 hours later or an hour later after eating that candy bar or that chocolate, because there was no fiber to help mediate the release of that insulin. And so then we hit a low, and so our body says, hey, there's a problem. There's low blood sugar. We gotta eat. And so you find yourself eating again. Now, insulin, has to do, of course, with diabetes. And a lot of people think that sugar is the problem with diabetes. But the problem with diabetes is actually fat. Because the way insulin works is that it goes to the cells of our body. Our body runs on glucose. That's our energy source. And when it goes to the cell, the insulin's job is to open, so to speak, a gate in the cell. We call it a receptor. It connects, and I'll show you guys a little movie about that, connects with that receptor. And so the cell opens these pores, so to speak, so that the sugar can actually go from the blood into the cell so that it can give us the energy and produce ATP, which is our major source of energy. But when we have too much fat in our body, in our cell, around our cells, etc., guess what happens? The fat actually goes and plugs those receptors. So the insulin cannot connect with the receptor and therefore cannot open the gate so the sugar can get from the bloodstream into the cell and give us energy. So people with diabetes, what happens? They're running around feeling fatigued, feeling tired because they don't have the energy. And in the meantime, the sugar that did not get into the cell is wreaking havoc because it's highly osmolar, right? And so it's making us thirsty. It is making us go to urinate a lot, and it's making us hungry because our cells are saying, hey, I am not getting that those calories, those nutrients, the sugar, the energy that I need to function. Here we will see a little, so you can see there the somebody where the insulin is working well. The insulin, that yellow diamond, goes into the gate or to the receptor. You see the This yellow thing is closed. That's the gate. Oops, I meant to do the other one. Okay, do I know how to go back? Okay, I missed it. Anyway, so I don't know if you guys saw that. When it connects into that green receptor or gate, it opened that other yellow gate or channel, so then you saw those sugar molecules then entering the cell. But when that is blocked with fat, the insulin will not do that. Okay, so here now, oops, we had a picture of the microbiome. Those finger-like projections are actually the villi of the gut, so that it has a larger area of absorption. God made us with these villi so that instead of just having these tubes, we actually have a larger surface that will be able to absorb bigger quantities of nutrients, okay? All right, so the gut microbiome, what is it and what are some of the functions, okay? It is the organ under active research right now, and it contains trillions of microorganisms called microbiota or microbes. There's thousands, different types of them: bacteria, fungi, viruses, and some are majority. Should be helpful. Unfortunately, sometimes we also have some that are not helpful. Okay. We live with the microbiota in a symbiotic situation where they do something for us as we do something for them. We feed them, and then they give us back things that are helpful, okay? So health promoting, and basically, it comes down to the diet that we eat. That's how we're gonna feed them, okay? Health promoting effects of the microbiome have to do with immunity, improving our immune system, okay? The absorption of vitamins, creating all kinds of short-chain fatty acids. We'll talk a little bit more about that, that help protect our system from all kinds of diseases, including cancer, okay? There are some detrimental effects that our body comes into contact with. Imagine, when we eat something, that food is really a foreign substance, something that our body doesn't know. And so our gut microbiome is there to help protect us from something that our body is not familiar with, okay? So that's one of the things that it will also do. The gut microbiome is mostly located in the small bowel and in the large bowel, the colon, okay? That's where it works, its magic, mostly in the large colon, large bowel. Okay, it's unique to everybody. Your DNA helps determine what your microbiome is going to be like, and we acquire it at birth. So when somebody has a natural delivery, that baby is getting microbiome from the mother, like lactobacilli, etc. And so that is one of the ways that is very important for the child's development, is when there is birth through the vaginal canal instead of a C-section. Breastfeeding also helps that. But unfortunately, sometimes our bodies can get into trouble with a condition that's called dysbiosis, okay? What does dysbiosis mean? Basically, dysbiosis has to do with having an imbalance from having more bad bugs from the good healthy bugs that actually give us something back, okay? Another term out there is SIBO, which is small bowel, intestinal or bacterial overgrowth. Kind of the similar thing, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it all boils down to what type or what kind of bacteria we have. Do we have the good ones? Then we will have health and we will not be dealing with dysbiosis. Or do we have the bad ones? And then we end up having problems, okay? So, a study revealed that in just 7 days, switching, a group of people from a high fiber diet, which is something more than 11 grams a day, to a low fiber diet, something like less than 10 grams a day, okay, would make people have symptoms of SIBO or dysbiosis, okay? And if you look at the books, at the message that we have from the Spirit of Prophecy, Sister White calls that dyspepsia. Okay, what are those symptoms? Bloated, crampy, gassy. And if you talk to, I'm sure everybody knows someone with these symptoms. I ate this and now I'm feeling crampy in my tummy, I'm feeling bloated, I don't know what's going on. You go to the doctor and they just tell you take an acid medication, and the problem just keeps going on. Because the problem is not that there was a problem with too much acid in your stomach. The problem has to do with having the wrong kind of bugs that are the ones that are creating this problem. Okay, so I as you can see there, fiber was important. Okay, the standard American diet, or diets that people eat typically in the United States, contain less than 16 grams of fat. So we are a people that is eating a very low fiber diet compared to our African counterparts, where their diet consists of more than 50 grams of fiber. Do you see that difference? So then what they did is that 81% of those people developed these symptoms. That's a big number, a big proportion, okay? But not only did they develop those symptoms, they also developed leaky gut. Have you guys heard about leaky gut? Okay, so leaky gut basically is a problem where the barrier or the lining of the small bowel starts allowing substances to get into the circulation that shouldn't be there. So proteins that normally would have been digested actually make it into the bloodstream because the junctions of those cells are open and allow these things to come in, and then they cause problems of autoimmune disease and allergies and etc. So that's another thing besides the SIBO or the IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, that people are dealing with, okay? So the standard American diet, guess what, is what feeds these bad bugs, okay? And that's because the standard American diet is low in fiber, high in processed and refined foods, and our bodies will select, or our gut microbiome will adjust itself to do what it needs to do in order to digest whatever food we're giving it. And if we're giving it high refined, high processed foods, then those are the kind of bugs that we are going to be fostering. Okay, so what they did is then they took these people back and they put them on on their regular diet again, and all the symptoms resolved. Okay, so that's something that's hopeful, that even if you've had these symptoms, we can help our gut microbiome improve by changing our diet slowly. Okay. All right, so let's go and talk about what are some of the consequences of having these bad bugs and not having the right bugs in our system. One is more inflammation. Inflammation is bad all around for all kinds of things, okay? Cancer, in particular, colorectal cancer, right? These factories of bugs are in our colon. And so colon cancer is something that is very, very much of a thing with having the bad bugs because of low fiber in our diet. Okay, if we know that the most common cancers, right, in men and women are going to be, for men, prostate cancer, then we have lung cancer and colon cancer. For women being breast cancer, lung cancer and colon cancer. So other things that happen secondary to having this dysbiosis or having the wrong kinds of bugs in our stomach is putrefaction of protein, okay? Putrefying proteins actually cause the development of bad substances that actually end up being carcinogenic or cancer producing. We don't want these things, okay? The other problem is when we get these proteins, that may be partially digested into the colon, then the bacteria use these proteins, and even though they were, converted into something that was not toxic, so we know about broccoli, right? Broccoli is a good thing. Broccoli can detoxify benzopyrene, which is a chemical that is carcinogenic found in meat. It can detoxify it and just make it inactive. But when we have the wrong kinds of bacteria, once that benzopyrene gets into our colon, then other bacteria that are also not of the good ones will take this inactivated benzopyrene and make it become active again, and therefore leading to increasing our risk of cancer. So they can, they can make something that we thought, oh, I'm eating lots of broccoli, I'm eating lots of this, and that's protecting me. But if you have these other bugs that have been selected by eating a low-fiber diet or a standard American diet, then we are actually ending still having the same problem, okay? Having these bugs also lead to metabolic syndrome, which is what? Metabolic syndrome is where there is a problem with insulin sensitivity that we were talking about a little bit earlier, leading to diabetes, okay? And then, of course, cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, stroke, revascularization, or needing to have a bypass, as well as death, okay? So why is cancer actually a thing with having the bad bugs or dysbiosis, okay? And this is what I was mentioning a little bit just a few minutes ago. The proteins actually become putrefied. That doesn't sound right, right? And then we have also these toxifying enzymes that all end up leading to damage of our DNA. And when we have damage to our DNA, again, we have the risk of developing cancerous tumors. Well, what about animal fat? Because, meat doesn't only come with the animal protein, it comes with the animal fat as well. And what happens is, as we learned, the liver produces these the bile, right? And the bile works on the fat, and it breaks down the fat into fatty acids. And all this bile that is in the gut can be converted by bacteria into another toxic form of it. We call it secondary bile acids. And those are very, very well known to be carcinogenic. In fact, they have looked at cells of women with breast cancer, for example, and they have found that they have high numbers of secondary bile acids. So not a good thing, okay? And especially, the fat we're talking about here is cholesterol, which is animal fat. That's what we're talking about. Now, what is this thing TMAO? Okay, trimethylamine N oxide. That's what that stands for, okay? Well, what is that, and where does it come from? Well, there's two substances. One is carnitine, or L-carnitine. Have you guys heard about that, carnitine? Yeah, some people use it, for the brain, for strength, for energy. It's in some of the energy drinks. The problem is that carnitine is mostly found in red meat, okay? And when we have the wrong kinds of bacteria, they feast on carnitine, because remember, we got these bugs, these bad kinds of bacteria, primarily because we selected them by eating a diet that was rich in animal fat, animal protein, okay? So they need to be there to digest that animal protein. And so when they see the carnitine, they convert the L-carnitine into a toxin, trimethylamine, and then the liver further converts that, it sees that running around, it converts that into TMAO, trimethylamine N oxide. And this is highly toxic. It's not only carcinogenic, it's been, found and highly proven to be involved in cancers, colorectal cancer again, but also in atherosclerosis. So heart attacks, strokes, and all that comes with that, including death, okay? Now, the other one is the researchers found, and this was a study that was done at the Cleveland Clinic, and they noticed that there was another molecule that's called choline. And choline is something that is also a problem. And what they noticed was that men with the L-carnitine, developed all these conditions, and they wondered, well, what about eating white meat, like fish and poultry? That doesn't really have the L-carnitine. And they found that eggs, milk, fish, shellfish, liver, contain another substance called choline. Choline is also metabolized by those bacteria, the bad bacteria, into TMAO. And that's the association of white meat with cancer and with atherosclerosis and stroke and all these things, okay? So let's talk a little bit about L-carnitine. There's no RDA establishment for it. Nobody can tell you how much you need. Guess what? Our body makes the carnitine that it needs, okay? We whatever small amount we need, our body makes that, okay? Animals also produce carnitine. Now, for somebody that eats meat, they go and they eat some meat. Well, guess what? They're getting extra carnitine because now it's not only what their body has made for their use, but they're also taking in the animal's L-carnitine, and then that will be converted into TMAO, okay? So the issue, again, is not the substance itself. It's not the carnitine itself or the choline itself. It's the bugs that convert that, because they have done studies where they have taken vegans and fed them a whole sirloin steak, okay? And their TMAO did not rise. They didn't even see a bump. Why? Because their guts did not have those bacteria. So, you need both. You need to have the bacteria and the substance in order to form that TMAO. So now, if you keep eating, then you will start adversely selecting those bad bacteria so that they can manage the meat that that's coming through the colon or to the bowel. That is L-carnitine. And so it matters what we eat. And here we have the statement by Hippocrates, let food be thy medicine and medicine thy food, being exemplified with the use of meat and the microbiome converting these two substances, L-carnitine and choline, into something bad. And having the option of not getting the TMAO by choosing a diet that is whole food, plant-based, not associated with animal products. Because again, remember, the choline is found in eggs, it's found in milk, so it's not only the meat, but those other things also are associated with it. Let's look at choline here. Harvard did a study where they had men that had early prostate cancer, because about 2 million American men are walking around with prostate cancer. If you find it early, then you have an excellent 5-year survival, okay? But if you find it when it's spread already, it's like 1 in 3 men that will not survive the 5 years. So they were interested in finding out what happened to those men that had prostate cancer early on, what were the dietary implications that made it progress or not, or to spread, okay? And they noticed that men that ate less than 1 egg a week, I mean, we're just talking maybe an egg in, less than 1 egg a day, sorry. So maybe an egg a week or something like that. They had a 2-fold increase in spreading their prostate cancer, okay? And men that ate, 4 eggs a week, or 2.5 eggs a week, sorry, had an 81% risk of having their cancer spread. That's a big, big number, okay? When they ate the chicken, they had a 4-fold rise in prostate cancer spreading. So, eggs were also associated with having a 70% chance of that prostate cancer being fatal, okay, or being advanced. So just a simple egg, because of the TMAO that feeds the body to spread the cancer, okay? All right, so since 2014, guess what? The egg industry has been familiar with these studies, okay? And we have known of the role of colon cancer and the relationship of colon cancer with choline, okay? In 2015, the Women's Health Initiative study also revealed that women with high TMAO levels had a 3-fold increase in rectal cancer, a very similar association as prostate cancer, okay? Again, the issue is TMAO, and the only way to get TMAO is through having bad bacteria that convert either carnitine or choline into this toxic substance, okay? So here we go. Science has proven that you are what you eat. It's true, because when they took people and that, were eating meat, they gave them antibiotics. The antibiotics, of course, wipe down your gut flora, and they fed them, bad things, meat and all these things. Their TMAO levels actually were very low. They were not really there. Why? Because the bacteria, even though you were giving the body the meat and all these things, they didn't have the bacteria to actually process the choline and the carnitine into the toxic TMAO. Now, they did get the bad things of high fat and bad cholesterol, et cetera, but you're not going to have TMAO. But 2 weeks later, when the effect of the antibiotics was gone off the gut flora, then the TMAO levels went up again, okay? So that all helps to suggest that we are what we eat. And the egg industry is very well aware of these studies. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Michael Greger from Nutrition Facts. He got his hands on an email that was an internal email within the egg industry where somebody mentioned, are you aware that, that they were very much aware that that TMA or that choline is associated with colon cancer, knowing and very much aware that the egg industry boasts that choline is very much found in eggs. So they know what they know, and so you have to really take responsibility for your own health because nobody else is watching out for you but you. Okay, so then let's talk a little bit about the good microbes. The healthy microbe actually runs on a Mac, not on a Mac computer, but on a microbiota accessible carbohydrate diet, okay? In other words, a whole food plant-based diet. This is associated with lots of fibers and highly resistant starches, okay? Resistant starches are basically starches that pass our small bowel, make it to the colon to be digested in the colon and serve as food for those healthy bacteria, okay? That's where we want it to be anyway, because the colon, the cancers will arise mostly in the colon, okay? Now, I mentioned a little bit earlier the word symbiosis. Symbiosis basically means when there is a two-way street between two organisms where they are both helping each other. And these good bugs or microbiota what they're doing actually is feeding us, and then we are feeding them. And what do they produce? They produce something called short-chain fatty acids. An example of those is, butyrate is the one that's talked about a lot. Acetate is another one. And so a lot of the research is actually showing that butyrate is something that is an anti-carcinogen, or deactivates cancer cells. Also is known to heal the irritated lining of the bowel. So when we have leaky gut, the butyrate is going to bring that healing, okay? So where do we find these short fatty acids? And where do we find, the resistant starch? It's going to be found in a whole food plant-based diet. Beans, if you had to ask, beans are going to be the #1 source of that. But we also have, fruits. We have whole grains. Those are all going to be good sources for our bacteria to create butyrate out of the resistant starches and the fibers, okay? Now, berries, you hear a lot about berries. Berries contain polyphenols. Polyphenols actually inhibit the enzyme that transform the resistant starches that break them down in the small bowel. So if they stop that enzyme from working, what happens is that the starch actually makes it into the large bowel and feeds the bacteria so that they can make a lot more short-chain fatty acids. So imagine if you ate a breakfast bowl with oats, for example, or barley, and then you add some berries to that. Well, that's a double whammy. We are feeding the microbiome with the source of it, the fiber, but we're also increasing the production of that fiber by inhibiting the enzyme so that the starches can actually make it to the colon and get there to feed the microbiome. Okay, so eating grains, that's great. So we can choose to eat grains that are ground up, so like, mushy oatmeal, or we could eat grains that are whole or intact. We call those the groats. And research shows that when they took two groups of people and they fed whole groats, so that's the entire kernel of oats or barley, to a group, and they compared that with another group that was fed, blended oats, they had a lower production of short-chain fatty acids compared to the group that actually ate the whole groat. And it's not really understood very well why. Possibly because the bacteria actually get to degrade more of the whole grain versus the already, partially ground up grain. So that is just interesting. Personally, I make oats from the groat. I buy it at Clark's, for example. You can get it at any health food store. I brought some actually to show. And you can just eat it very nicely with some nuts and some berries, and get the maximum production of short-chain fatty acids when you do that. The other thing is that because it's a whole grain, it also, and the fiber is not disrupted, it also will be a lower glycemic index type of food. Glycemic index has to do with how fast the insulin will rise to bring down the levels of sugar as they have entered our gut, okay? Okay, so then we already kind of talked a little bit about the decrease in colon cancer secondary to the butyrate. They took actually some butyrate and they put it on a petri dish that had colon cancer cells, and it destroyed those cancer cells. That was done, a study that was done in vivo. They saw it, actually happening. So that's very good. It also deactivates those toxic bile salts that are carcinogenic, okay? Butyrate also boosts FGF21. FGF21 is a substance that protects us against metabolic syndrome, against atherogenesis, diabetes, and the more we have of that, the better, okay? It's also implicated with protecting us against cancer, autoimmunity, obesity, diabetes, okay? So, so that's something that we want as well. So short-chain fatty acids like butyrate will also help maintain, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, the lining of our cells or of our stomach, tightening those junctions of the cells in the bowel so that we don't end up with leaky gut syndrome, okay? So just being a little, sarcastic here, the health industry, the pharmaceutical industry, I should say, probably has come up already with a pill that contains short fatty acids. Why wouldn't you take a pill, right? You don't have to change your diet. You don't have to eat more fiber. Just take a pill. In fact, they have Pop-Tarts nowadays that boast of having, short-chain fatty acids. So why not keep eating your highly processed food and just take a pill? I had a patient that came in, and he was a diabetic, and his wife was very interested in him using or changing or considering a whole food plant-based diet. He was not. So when we offered him, can we, give you this diet? He said, nope. Give me my pancakes and syrup and just give me the insulin. So we have choices to make, right? Okay, let's talk about an optimal diet. Okay, getting close to time here. Okay, so let's uproot the leading causes. What's the leading cause of death in the United States? Heart disease, right? And then we have cancer, right? These are the leading causes of death in the United States. So let's uproot them. Let's uproot them not by taking pills. Let's uproot them by feeding our microbiome what they want so that they can keep us healthy, okay? And protect us from the bad things out there, right? Like the TMAO. And that is done by eating a whole food, plant-based, low-fat diet, okay? Dr. Esselstyn's, are you guys familiar with him? Dr. Esselstyn's did all this research on coronary artery disease, and he found out that he could prevent, he could halt, and reverse heart disease by changing, people's diets into accepting a whole food, plant-based, low-fat diet, okay? Again, maybe the evidence, that's where they started thinking about the FGF21, that maybe that was something that was playing a role as well, because, you can, as physicians, we can bring your cholesterol down with statins, right? They do a great job. They bring your cholesterol down, but it did not take away their metabolic syndrome. It did not take away patients' obesity. They don't do that. They just bring the cholesterol down. But these patients that went on the whole food, plant-based, low-fat diet with Dr. Esselstyn actually had the side effect of losing weight, and their metabolic syndrome changed and improved, went away. And the thought is that it was the FGF21 that was playing a role. coming from the whole food plant-based diet, the short-chain fatty acids, okay? So what's the recommended protein amount that we should have, okay? So for men, 56 grams a day. For women, 46 grams a day. Well, guess what? How much protein actually most men are eating in this country? Probably about 111 grams or something. And when they did this, this study with Dr. Esselstyn, they found that the higher the amount of protein in the diet, the lower the FGF21. And this, protein we're talking about is animal protein. And so that is the whole reason this FGF21 is possibly implicated in people's health, okay, atherosclerotic heart disease. So we're really eating too much protein. High protein diets actually are not the best. If you look at the African diet is mostly fiber and a smaller amount of protein. Okay, so Genesis 1:29 says, "And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat." In the book Ministry of Healing, we are told that vegetables were destroyed, and it makes sense, after the flood. And it's only after the flood that God gave them permission to eat some meat because the plants were gone. So that was an exception. We know that when we go to heaven, there is no death. There's going to be no death of animals to feed us. So why not start making those changes while we are here on earth and start enjoying better health, right? So one of the things we can do to enjoy better health is stop feeding the bad bugs, right? Getting off highly processed foods altogether, right? And adding a higher fiber diet. We should shoot for hopefully 50 grams of fiber a day, like what the African diet is. So just because something is vegan, it doesn't mean that it is healthy, right? Beer is vegan. Brownies are vegan. Does it mean they're healthy? No. So it needs to be, the modifier there is whole food, plant-based. Okay, just vegan alone may not cut it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, you're trying to do your best. I'm going to start a whole food, plant-based diet. I'm going to eat a lot more fiber, and then guess what? Suddenly you're not feeling all too well. You're having some bloating, you're feeling like, crampy in your tummy, a lot of gas. What's going on? So those are actually symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome, or actually, some people call it SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. The studies on that are all controversial because the methods they're using to try to determine that there is bacterial overgrowth are not really conclusive. So anyway, in medicine, we do have this condition that we call irritable bowel syndrome, and it has pretty much the same symptoms of SIBO. The problem there is that we don't have the right bacteria. So now you're flooding your system with all this fiber, and the gut is like, what am I going to do with this? I don't have a way. I don't know how to digest this. And then fermentation happens, and things happen, and then we're not happy, okay? So the thing to do is, there is studies that show that fasting helps with irritable bowel syndrome or with SIBO. I mean, you can do something drastic like go and do a 10-day fast, always, of course, under the supervision of a physician that knows what they're doing. Or you could just maybe fast on your own. Just do, 1 day, 2-day fast. And that has been shown to actually bring some healing and just cool things down in the bowel. And then you slowly start reintroducing your fiber again. Start easy, start slow, Listen to your body, watch and see what it is that you're feeling as you introduce different things. You know, one of the things that the book not ministry, counsels and diets and foods and diets, what it says is that it is not healthy to eat a lot of foods or food combinations in one meal, okay? So she says that a lot of times it's not the food. I mean, the food is okay. The problem is we are putting too much of too many different kinds at the same time, and then our body doesn't know what to do with it, and then we have problems. So start easy, start slow, and then see how your body responds to that. And everything takes time, okay? And of course, the most important thing is back off on the processed foods, and slowly, if you are eating meat, just slowly, you know, make changes. Don't do everything in one shot. The body needs time to adjust. So maybe if you're eating, you know, red meats and fish, maybe start by cutting off the red meat. And then slowly, you know, maybe you're gonna back off the chicken. And then maybe you're gonna back off, you know, the fish. Just give the body time to make its adjustments. Give the body time to select those healthy bacteria, okay? And then you can, you know, back off other things as time goes and depending on how you're feeling, okay? Let's see, okay. Beware that, you know, there are all these gut connections with the rest of our body. Our body is like a spider web. You move one thread, it affects the other threads, right? So we have the gut-brain connection, and research shows that not only does the gut communicate to the brain, it's not completely clear. I mean, research is really going on a lot in this field. It's really not very clear all that happens. We do know that the vagus nerve connects the gut with our brain, and then it produces neurotransmitters, and, you know, we call it the second brain, right, our gut. But the brain also connects with our gut, or talks, I should say, to our gut. So if we have anxiety, we have stress, that affects our microbiome. The book Ministry of Healing says that 99% or 90% of diseases start in the brain, start in the mind. And so stress is one of these things, right, that will affect our microbiome. And actually, I was listening, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dr. Bolsheviks. He's a gastroenterologist, but he specializes in functional medicine, and he was talking about a patient that he had that had ulcerative colitis. That's an inflammatory bowel disease. And he had done all this stuff that we're talking about, and the patient was just not getting better. And then one day she showed up, and she was all happy, and she was like, you know, I'm back to my old self. And he's like, what did you do? She's like, I changed my job. I had a very stressful job. My boss was not treating me right. And I just, you know, decided I need to make a change and got a different job. For a lot of us, and it's something that is very human, the easiest thing is to find out what is the easiest thing to change. And we keep changing this and changing that without really dealing with the problem, which could be stress. So it's not only about nutrition. Nutrition is important. Yes, it's very much, very, very important for our gut. But it's all about optimal health, okay? And optimal health, are you guys familiar with the New Start algorithm, right? We talked about nutrition the majority of the time here, but then we have exercise. Did you know that exercise is important for our microbiome? Absolutely. You know, science is now catching up with what we know for over 150 years, where we were told that it is good to walk for about 15 minutes after every meal. Science shows that our blood sugars drop after, you know, for each minute a point, every time that you walk after a meal. Science now, if you look at the current, you know, functional medicine and lifestyle medicine, what are they advocating now for? Go and take a walk after you eat. We knew this. but we just don't believe it until science proves it. So, and I'm guilty of that. So, so that's exercise. Not only is exercise important in that sense, but it also is important because it keeps our muscles, our joints flexible and working. Okay, so W for water, and you guessed it, water also affects our microbiome, okay? Water is important in so many things. I mean, if we are dehydrated, our body is 65% water. If we are dehydrated, do you think we will have enough enzymes to go and digest the food that we just ate? No. And so we end up with dyspepsia, gasiness, because food is not being digested properly. So make sure that we stay hydrated, okay? The best time to eat water is when? In between meals, because that's when the body needs, to clean up, it needs to replenish its enzymes. So eating water or drinking water between meals is the best time. How much should you drink? Well, take your body and weight, in pounds, and divide it in half, and that's the amount of water you should be taking minimum in a hot day, or if you're exercising, it should be more than that. But just at a standard, level, that's the amount of water that you should drink in ounces, okay? Okay, the S starts for sunshine. Amazing research is coming out on light. We know about sunshine. It's important not only for vitamin D, right? We need vitamin D. But guess what? The rays of the sun also contain near-infrared light, or near-infrared rays. What are they? These near-infrared rays actually are amazing. There's research out there and pictures out there that show these near-infrared rays penetrating our skin. They penetrate our clothing. You can be wearing a hat. They'll penetrate your skull to actually get into the gyri and the different convolutions of our brain to do what they need to do. Well, what do? They actually mop up reactive oxygen species, or free radicals. Have you guys heard the word free radicals? It's very much out there. These are the things that TMAO actually end up producing that damage our DNA, okay? So melatonin is the most potent antioxidant that is produced at the level of the skin when our skin is exposed, or our body is exposed to near-infrared light. Do you need to be in the sun to get those? No, you really don't. All you need to be outside where there's a lot of green, like grass, trees, and these green substances, the chlorophyll, will actually reflect those near-infrared light or rays to your body, so that at the level of your skin, the melatonin can be produced so that it can mop up or clean up reactive oxygen species. Very important for COVID. You get COVID, don't be inside. Be out in the sun, be out in an area where you can get near infrared light. We just need to get as much as possible things that decrease the free radicals or reactive oxygen species, okay? And melatonin is one of them. Food is loaded with other antioxidants, right? Polyphenols, glutathione, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so then we have temperance. Oh, temperance is a big one, okay? T for temperance. Ecclesiastes 1:8 says that basically there's a time for everything in life, okay? God is a God of order. If you look at the universe out there, doesn't it all move in order, right? The planets are all circulating with their orbits, everything is in order. I mean, Jupiter doesn't decide today to get out of order because it just wanted to, or we don't see the sun suddenly coming out today at 11 o'clock, tomorrow at 9. No, there's order. And our body, our cells, our microbiome are all subjected to these laws of order, okay? So guess what? It's not only important what you eat, as we talked about, but it's also important when you eat. And this is, again, new research is all coming out. We knew this over 150 years ago, that, number one, if we eat 2 meals a day, it allows our bodies to rest, okay? And it's associated with better health. I mean, the angel showed her that 2 meals a day were better than 3. Now, should we impose that on everybody? Absolutely not. That's a choice that we all need to do for ourselves, right? And depending our circumstances, there are circumstances when people need to eat, a third meal. But if you choose to do so, she says to make it something very light. However, science shows that it does matter when you eat, because some people do restricted, fasting. That's very much in vogue nowadays. But what they do is they eat a breakfast at 10 or 11, and then they eat dinner at 5, and that was 2 meals a day. Well, the research actually shows that insulin sensitivity is the highest in the morning. And when you choose to eat, even if it's a low glycemic diet, like lettuce, right? If you choose to eat it at 5, 4, or whatever, time late in the afternoon, that low glycemic index food actually becomes and behaves as a high glycemic index food, because the insulin sensitivity fades away as the day progresses. There is research showing, there's charts showing where they have done studies of people eating, and they measure their insulin sensitivity, and it just drops down at the end of the day. So imagine if you're having a full meal of whatever it is, could be all healthy and dandy, but if you're eating it at the wrong time, you could actually be making yourself a diabetic at the time, because your insulin sensitivity is not there to open up the gate so that the sugar gets actually into the cell. So it matters when you eat. The science of chronobiology is just amazing. It is just it's just fascinating to see how our bodies like order, to eat at a certain time every time, to go to bed at a certain time every time. Just that's how we were made. Okay? So then, all right. So then we go to A for air or fresh air. Breathing. Breathing is like prayer in a way, because do we just pray just short little prayers? Lord, help me. That car almost hit me, or save me, or, just short little bursts of prayer? No. The soul needs to have, just a good prayer, a good time of communing with our Heavenly Father. Well, can you imagine that we just walk around breathing like this? Just these short little breaths, our body's not even moving, we're just breathing. Versus deep breathing, having our diaphragm contract, allowing those lungs to expand and bringing the oxygen that we need. So that's how breath is kind of similar to prayer, in that we do need to every so often take deep breaths so that we can have, a good amount of oxygen. Yawning, all of that is part of improving our oxygen content in our blood. R is for sleep. We need about 7 to 8 hours of sleep, So what can we do? Avoid caffeine is number one. That's the number one most commonly addictive drug that is used in the world. We also want to avoid blue light, about, minimum 2 hours before bed. And you know what? Sometimes people have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep because there's too much going on in their mind. They just can't still their thought process because of worries, because of stress. So one of the things that I have recommended to my patients in the past has been to, keep a gratitude diary next to your bed. And if you're having trouble falling asleep because you just can't quiet your mind down, just take your diary and get in the habit of, writing 3 things that you're thankful for before you go to bed. And in the morning when you wake up, write 3 things that you are thankful for that you will have that day. Okay, it doesn't have to be anything. You know, I'm thankful that I have chairs in my home. I'm thankful for my shoes. You know, whatever it is that you have at hand. Because sometimes when you talk with depressed patients, you ask them, "What are you thankful for?" And they say, "Nothing. There's absolutely nothing." And you're like, "Really? Aren't you thankful you have shoes on your feet right now?" So it could be something very basic, but just stimulating the mindset of thankfulness. I know my father-in-law has this thing where every Friday, every Sabbath, at the end of of the Sabbath, when it's time for sundown worship, we go around. What are you thankful for this week? And just counting and recounting God's blessings is healing to our body. It calms down our brain, and again, our brain is talking to our microbiome to help it function at its best, okay? Trusting God, again, not in yoga, not in transcendental meditation, not in the type of meditation that is emptying your mind. I mean, you can empty your mind with, saying or whatever it is, or you can empty your mind by saying, Jesus saves, for whatever length of time. No, that's not the type of meditation that we are counseled or encouraged to do. We are encouraged to meditate in the Word of God, in His promises, in the last scenes of Christ in Gethsemane. And we do that by actively engaging our brain and considering what happened and, the different scenes that happened during those, whatever it is that we are beholding. So that's kind of what I have for today. I went a little bit over time. So I don't know. I hope this was helpful. I hope it wasn't too technical. But I did want to present some of the actual chemical behaviors that happen in our bodies that affect our microbiome through the food that we eat. And never has it been more true than today that we truly are what we eat. One last verse I wanted to leave with all of you, and that verse is, I thought I had it here, maybe it was. Okay, the verse is the one that is found in 1 Corinthians 10:31, I think it is, that says, Beloved, and whether you eat, whether you drink, or whatsoever ye do, do it all to the glory of God. That is our safeguard, because before I put in my mouth that piece of cake, or you fill in the blank, if this thing that I'm doing, or behavior it doesn't have to be a food, it could be a behavior. If that is not bringing glory to God's name, if that's making me healthy, and if that's not making me healthy but making me sick, being sick does not bring glory to the name of God. And so if whatever it is that I'm going to engage in is not bringing glory to the name of God, then it should make us think about it twice. Thank you very much. You've been a very gracious audience. Any questions? Oh, okay, supplements. I didn't go into supplements, but there are some supplements that we have to take, that we should, I should say, consider taking. If we are whole food, plant-based diet, okay, then we should be taking B12. B12 is very important. It's a cofactor that helps convert homocysteine into methionine, okay? It's a chemical reaction that happens. And when we don't have the B12, then the reaction cannot move forward from homocysteine to methionine. And what happens is then that homocysteine builds up. And homocysteine is toxic. It's hypercoagulable. it increases the risk of clots. So we don't want that. We don't want this to be elevated. So B12 is important for that. B12 also is important for the myelin of our nerves. And if we don't have B12, then we will not be able to myelinate correctly. And so we can end up with, neuropathy, numbness, tingling in the feet. And if it's not taken care of, even paralysis. So B12 is very important, can cause brain fog, dementia associated with that. So B12 is one of these vitamins. The other one is vitamin D, because honestly, I don't think a lot of us are getting it from the sun, are getting enough of it from the sun. So that is also a good idea, and possibly zinc. But if you're eating, and when I say zinc, it shouldn't be more than 25 milligrams a day, because too much zinc actually will bring havoc in the balance with copper. So we don't want too much zinc. So if you supplement with 25 milligrams of zinc a day, it's very important for our immune system and for many chemical reactions. Magnesium, a lot of foods contain magnesium, especially your greens contain magnesium. So if you're eating a lot of those, you should be okay with magnesium. But if you're in doubt, taking some magnesium glycinate, for example, or oxide is probably okay. So other supplements, I think if you're eating a healthy diet, you should be okay. Turmeric is one out there that people, that is, has been shown to decrease, cancer. You can take it in a pill, or you can just take the root and put it in a smoothie or in your, the food that you cook. So yeah, those are kind of the supplements that I personally think or consider, but we should be getting plenty of vitamin C with our food. Any particular supplement that you were curious about?
What about a one-a-day woman's vitamin?
So I don't know what it contains. I think the most important thing for vitamins, again, is going to be what's that? Organic. Yeah, I think honestly, if you are eating a well-balanced diet, except for those vitamins that I mentioned, vitamin D, B12, if you're on a vegan diet, you should be getting, selenium. Okay, selenium is a trace mineral that they probably have in these vitamins. And if you're taking, all it takes is 1 Brazil nut a day, 1 to 2 Brazil nuts a day, you get all the selenium that your body needs. Selenium is very important for heart health, for the immune system. So if you are eating your, Brazil nuts, 1 or 2 a day, you get your selenium. Let's see, what else is there? It was another one that I had thought about, but yeah, vitamin D, vitamin B12, zinc. Those are the ones that come to mind that I think you may be, we may be kind of short on. So yeah, that's my thought. I personally don't take women's vitamin a day. Yes. Sorry, one more thing. Certain situations, let's say somebody is malnourished or under certain treatments, certain exposures, you may need to supplement, but I don't think it's something that you need all the time if you're eating healthy. So, yes.
Yeah, I did the 23andMe gene test years ago, and my mom had really bad arthritis, and she ate toast every day and coffee until she ended up getting dementia and passed away. But when they did that test, it found out I have a gene defect, which I found out 30% of the American public has it, and 30% of the American public have arthritis. It's called the MTHFR gene defect. I have to take a special B vitamin complex, coenzymated.
Yes.
And I was getting arthritis. I was on my bike, it fell down, a joint was stiff until I started changing my B vitamin. It went away, and now my joints are fine.
Yeah.
So a lot of people in their family, they don't realize that their arthritis is caused by their taking the wrong B vitamin, because they add this B supplement, cheap B supplement. It causes arthritis in people that have this gene defect. So if you have arthritis, go get tested, see if you have this gene defect, because if you do, then you can do changes that you won't end up arthritic down the road.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that point. So methylation is something that is very important. And so there is the MTHFR gene that some people can have, and they don't process the B vitamins. They have to be taken in a methylated form in order for the body to absorb them. So personally, I take I don't know, I haven't done a 23andMe, but the B12 that I take is a methylated B12, just in case. But yeah, so something to think about. Again, arthritis can be associated with a poor microbiome, of course, with overuse, with overweight, also with genetics. So stress can cause, or lead to arthritis as well. Stress will attack whatever is our, I shouldn't say it that way, but it has it will choose in different people, different parts of attacking, So for some people, it'll be the joints. For some people, it will be, manifested with irritable bowel syndrome. We're all different, some will be, the heart. Different things. Stress causes the release of steroids, or what we call cortisol. And cortisol is just very inflammatory and very, I'm just going to say inflammatory. So again, here we go to our new start, right? So trusting God, seeking the right help when we need to, seeking therapists if we need to, dealing with the different things that haven't been dealt with, have been put under the carpet, but are, subverting us, that are actually undermining us because we haven't dealt with these things. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yes. Somebody in the back? Oh.
The consumption of egg.
Yes.
What is the
problem?
No. What is the normal amount, the good amount of egg that we can eat every day or every week?
Sure. Well, if you look at the research that we have seen on the formation of TMAO, that toxin that causes damage to our DNA, that is atherogenic, right, increasing the risk of stroke, heart attacks, the leading death causes in the United States, being, cardiovascular disease and cancer, both are, fed by TMAO. And knowing that choline is a precursor of TMAO through the conversion by bad bacteria in our gut, and knowing that eggs, right, the egg industry boasts that they are one of the highest contents of choline, then I would say 0 eggs is the best, right? Now, could you cheat, like, every day you eat a whole plant food-based diet, right? So you have all these great bacteria that don't recognize, the choline to make it into TMAO, right? That's all you eat. And you cheat with 1 egg once a year or every so often, you're kind of fooling your body, right? Then, as you play with this fire, you can actually enjoy an egg, every so often, because you don't have the normal bacteria that would render the choline into a toxic thing, right? Or let's say you had bronchitis or something and they gave you antibiotics. Well, those bacteria were affected or wiped out with the antibiotic, and you want to eat something there, this knowledge, so this is a good time to cheat. So the bottom line is that milk and eggs both contain choline. And so eggs, fish, shellfish, liver, meat, they all contain choline, and if our bodies are, if they contain the bacteria that convert that into TMAO, then we're going to end up with TMAO in our bodies. Yeah.
So if we can eliminate egg,
it would be the best.
it would be the best.
It
Okay.
would be the best.
Thank you.
They're not only high sources of cholesterol. The egg white that doesn't have cholesterol, sometimes that protein can not be digested completely, and it makes it into our colon, partially digested. And so that is one of these animal proteins that undergoes putrefaction. And then, putrefaction leads to the production of sulfuric acid, the rotten egg smell, and then that causes reactive oxygen species, and the reactive oxygen species damage our DNA. So, yes.
I don't know, maybe I was snoozing when you covered this topic, but when I go to the health food store, I was at Mother's Market the other day, and they have probiotic section, and they have, this has 5 billion cells, 10 billion cells, 200 billion cells, and like $50 for a capsule or something. Is there any benefit to taking that stuff, or are you really putting the wrong probiotic in your system? Or do they even survive getting through your stomach? I don't know.
Right. Good, very good question. So there is a role for probiotics under certain circumstances. For example, you just finished a course, or you are taking a course of antibiotics, right? We know the antibiotics are what? Killing your bacteria. They don't care which ones they kill. They kill good and bad. So that is a good time for considering a probiotic. If you have a condition where sometimes people have conditions, maybe colectomy, right? People may have to have had a colectomy. The colon is gone. So certain conditions, it would be helpful to take a probiotic. But guess what? The deal nowadays is not so much the probiotics as the prebiotics. Right? What are the prebiotics? Prebiotics are the food that feeds our microbiome, right? And that's your resistant starches and your fiber, which are found in number one. I mean, Dan Buettner, are you guys familiar with his work, right? He did the blue zones and all that stuff. And if he had to choose, his number one food would be beans. The lowly bean. Beans, yeah, legumes, okay? And then the number two would be whole grains, okay? Whole grain like oats, barley, kamut, any of those would be his number two, yeah. Okay, last question.
I have a question.
Yes.
What do you think about, when I feel sick, sometimes I take a charcoal pill. What is the benefit of charcoal pill?
So the way charcoal works is by binding toxins, binding bacteria. I personally travel with charcoal because you never know what you're gonna find or what you're gonna encounter. So charcoal is very good. I think that that's something that is good to use. Let's say you have diarrhea, you have upset stomach. Just make sure that you drink plenty of fluids, and make sure that you don't take it with meals because you don't want it to bind your nutrients, okay? So that's the thing to know about charcoal. And one more thing before I forget, if you are a diabetic and you decide that you want to implement a whole plant food-based diet, be aware that blood sugars can drop in a matter of days. So talk to your doctor to make sure that they educate you or that you're in communication with their office so that you don't end up with hypoglycemia or low blood sugars, right? Because as you change your diet, your blood sugars are going to come down. But then if you keep taking the same dose of medication, guess what? Your blood sugar is going to be dropping, and low blood sugar can be deadly. So I'm not saying, just don't ever try it. I'm just saying if you decide to try it, make sure that you communicate to your doctor so they can help you or navigate what the blood sugars will do, and make sure you're checking your blood sugars after every meal.
Let's clarify, activated charcoal. It's
Activated, yeah.
Yeah, don't take something out of the fireplace and eat it. No,
Right.
it's
Right.
especially made, filtered, it's called activated charcoal.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your Sabbath, and good cheers to healthy eating.
So what do you say? Amen. Thank you, Dr. Axa. This is a token of our appreciation for you.
Thank you very
It's a certificate of appreciation.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
And let's have a prayer. Our most gracious, loving Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for bringing us a health message today through Dr. Axa. Help us to be healthy, keep our body healthy, to be worthy of being a temple of your kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen.